left to die, tied to a post. A wolf appeared and did the unthinkable. The sun had reached that particular angle of cruelty where it stopped being light and became something closer to divine punishment. High noon in the Arizona Badlands, and the ghost town of Salvation Creek sat baking in the heat like bones bleaching in the desert. The buildings leaned at angles that defied physics, their wood silvered by decades of wind and sun, their windows empty as the eye sockets of skulls. Nothing moved except the dust devils that spun through the streets like restless spirits searching for the living that had long since abandoned this place. Nothing moved except for the woman, tied to the post in the center of what had once been the town square. Her name was Catherine Price, though at this moment names seemed like luxuries belonging to a world that had already forgotten her. She was 26 years old, had been traveling from Santa Fe to Tucson to take a position as a school teacher, and was now going to die in this abandoned hellscape because she'd made the mistake of choosing the wrong stagecoach on the wrong day. The bandits had hit them at dawn, 3 miles from Salvation Creek. 5 men with faces hidden behind bandanas and cruelty written in every line of their bodies. They'd killed the driver first, shot him before he could even reach for his weapon. The guard managed 1 shot before a bullet took him in the throat. The other passengers, a merchant and his wife, had been robbed and sent walking back toward Santa Fe with the message that cooperation brought mercy. But Catherine had fought. When the leader, a man with eyes like chips of dirty ice, had reached for her bag, she'd struck him across the face with it, the heavy leather catching him hard enough to split his lip. For a moment, his expression had held something almost like respect. Then it had shifted into something much darker. "Got ourselves a wildcat," he'd said, blood running down his chin. "Reckon she needs to learn some manners." They'd brought her to Salvation Creek, this place that had died during the silver bust 10 years prior. They'd tied her to the old hitching post in the center of town, bound her wrists and ankles with rope that cut into her skin, and left her with a canteen just out of reach. "You got spirit," the leader had said, mounting his horse. "Be ashamed to waste it. Someone might come along before you die. Then again, might not." His smile had been worse than a threat. "Either way, you'll learn that fighting don't pay." That had been 6 hours ago, maybe 7. Time had lost meaning somewhere between the moment she'd stopped being able to feel her hands and the moment she'd realized that no one was coming. Catherine's lips were cracked and bleeding. Her tongue felt like leather in her mouth. The black dress she'd worn for travel was soaked with sweat, offering no protection from the sun that seemed determined to cook her alive. She'd stopped crying hours ago when she'd realized tears were just water she couldn't afford to waste. She was going to die here. The certainty of it sat in her chest like a stone. Like and subscribe to Western Stories and Tales for more stories from the Wild West. That's when she heard it, a sound that made her blood freeze despite the heat. The howl started low, almost conversational, then climbed into something that raised every primitive alarm her ancestors had carried out of the caves. It echoed off the empty buildings, impossible to place, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Catherine's head snapped up, her vision swimming with dehydration and terror. Through the heat shimmer rising from the dusty street, she saw it. A wolf, or something very close to one. gray and brown and magnificent in a way that made her heart hammer. Its coat was thick despite the heat, its body lean with the kind of muscle that came from constant hunting. But it was the eyes that held her. Amber, almost gold, intelligent and calculating, and fixed on her with an intensity that suggested she'd just become the most interesting thing in its world. The wolf took a step forward, then another. Its gait was deliberate, patient, the movement of a predator that knew its prey couldn't escape. Catherine tried to scream, but her throat was too dry, and what emerged was barely more than a croak. The wolf stopped about 20 feet away, its head lowering, its body tensing in a way that she recognized from every nightmare about being hunted. But the wolf didn't attack. Instead, it circled, moving around her in a wide arc, its nose lifting to the wind. It was scenting her, trying to determine if she was prey or something else. Catherine's mind raced through every story she'd ever heard about wolves. The advice contradicted itself, and all of it seemed useless when she was tied to a post and couldn't do anything but sit there and wait. The wolf completed its circle and sat down, just out of reach, and watched her. They stayed like that for what felt like hours. The wolf watching, Catherine waiting, the sun continuing its slow arc across the sky, indifferent to the drama playing out beneath it. Then the wolf did something unexpected. It walked to the canteen the bandits had left just out of her reach and knocked it over with its nose. Water spilled out, darkening the dust, and the wolf lowered its head and lapped at it. Catherine watched in despair as precious water disappeared. But then the animal did something even stranger. It approached her, slowly, cautiously, its body language suggesting uncertainty rather than aggression. It came close enough that she could smell it, that wild scent of fur and earth, and something indefinably other. Then it licked her face. The sensation was shocking. The wolf's tongue rough and warm and impossibly gentle. It licked the blood from her cracked lips, licked the salt from her cheeks, and Catherine understood with sudden clarity that the animal wasn't trying to eat her. It was trying to help. Tears came then, real ones, hot and painful. The wolf continued its ministrations, its tongue providing moisture to her parched skin, and Catherine felt something shift inside her. She wasn't alone. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." The wolf's ears pricked forward at the sound of her voice, and it sat back, tilting its head in a gesture so dog-like it would have been comical in any other circumstance. They regarded each other, woman and wolf, two creatures that shouldn't have been in this place, connected by circumstances neither had chosen. The wolf stayed. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, the animal curled up in the shade beside the post, keeping watch. Catherine drifted in and out of consciousness, but every time she woke, the wolf was there. Once, when a vulture circled overhead, the wolf stood and snarled, a sound so full of threat that the bird veered away and didn't return. The wolf had claimed her. Not as prey, but as something else. Territory, maybe, or pack. Whatever instinct drove it, the animal had decided that she was worth protecting. Night fell, and with it came cold that was almost as brutal as the day's heat. Catherine shivered, her body racked with tremors she couldn't control. The wolf moved closer, pressing its warm body against her legs, sharing heat that kept her from slipping into hypothermia. Dawn came painted in shades of rose and gold, and Catherine barely saw it. Her eyes wouldn't focus anymore, and her thoughts moved like molasses. The wolf whined softly, a sound of distress. That's when she heard the hoofbeats. Through the haze of her failing vision, Catherine saw him. A man on a horse, riding into Salvation Creek like a ghost himself. He was tall, powerfully built, wearing trail-worn clothes and a hat pulled low against the rising sun. He rode with the easy grace of someone born to the saddle. The wolf's growl deepened, and the man reined in his horse about 30 feet away, his hand moving to the rifle on his saddle, but not drawing it. He sat very still, assessing the situation. "Easy there, brother," he said, his voice carrying clearly. He wasn't speaking to Catherine. He was speaking to the wolf. The animal's growl faltered. The man dismounted slowly, deliberately, keeping his movements smooth and non-threatening. He was perhaps 35, his face weathered by sun and hard living, his eyes a striking blue. There was something about him that suggested competence, a quiet authority that came from surviving things that killed lesser men. "I'm not here to hurt her," the man continued. "I'm here to help. You've been doing a good job keeping her alive, but she needs water and medicine. Let me help." The wolf watched him, and Catherine had the strange sense that something was passing between them, some understanding that transcended species. The man took a step forward, then another, his hands visible and empty. "My name's Samuel Cross," he said. "I'm a tracker. Been following those bandits for 3 days. They hit a bank in Prescott, killed 2 people. I found where they stopped here, saw what they did." His jaw tightened. "I came to see if there was anyone left to save." The wolf sat down, and Samuel took it as permission. He approached carefully, and when he reached Catherine, he knelt down, his expression shifting to something harder when he saw her condition. "Jesus," he breathed. "How long have you been out here?" Catherine tried to answer, but her tongue wouldn't cooperate. Samuel understood. He pulled a canteen from his belt and lifted it to her lips. "Small sips," he instructed. "Too much too fast will make you sick." The water was sweet and cold and tasted like life itself. After a moment, Samuel pulled the canteen away and produced a knife. The wolf stood again, a warning growl returning. "I need to cut the ropes," Samuel said to the animal. "I promise I'm not going to hurt her." The wolf watched for a long moment, then sat back down. Samuel began sawing at the ropes binding Catherine's wrists. They were embedded in her skin, crusted with blood. He worked carefully, his touch gentle, despite his rough hands. "Those bandits left me," Catherine managed to whisper. "I know," Samuel said quietly. "The merchant and his wife made it back and reported what happened. Said there was a woman who fought back. I've been tracking them since." He finished cutting her free. "I found their camp from last night, signs they'd been here. Came to see what I'd find." The ropes fell away, and Catherine tried to move, but her limbs wouldn't cooperate. Samuel caught her as she slumped forward, lifted her as if she weighed nothing, and carried her to the shade. The wolf followed, staying close. Samuel laid her on his bedroll and began the work of saving her life. He gave her water in measured amounts, fed her small pieces of dried meat, He examined her wounds, cleaning them with water and wrapping them with strips of cloth. His movements were efficient, practiced. "That wolf has been keeping you alive," Samuel said as he worked. "The tracks show it's been circling this area, keeping predators away. Probably saved you from vultures, maybe a mountain lion." "It licked my face," Catherine whispered. "Gave me water." Samuel's eyes moved to the wolf with respect. "That's pack behavior. It claimed you. Animals are smarter than folks give them credit for. This one knew you were dying and tried to help the only way it knew how." The day passed in a haze. Samuel stayed with her, moving her into deeper shade as the sun climbed, giving her water and food, letting her body slowly remember how to process sustenance. The wolf remained close, and Samuel treated its presence with respect. "You hunt people for money?" Catherine asked, when she could finally speak properly. "Sometimes," Samuel admitted. "These bandits killed a friend of mine in that bank robbery. Teller named Michael Chen. I made a promise to his widow I'd find the men responsible." "Revenge," Catherine said. "Justice," Samuel corrected. "There's a difference. I'll find them, all 5 of them, and they'll answer for what they've done, including what they did to you." By evening, Catherine could sit up. Samuel had built a small fire and was cooking beans and salt pork. The wolf had moved closer as darkness fell, drawn by the fire and the smell of food. It sat just outside the circle of light. "She's hungry," Catherine observed. Samuel corrected. "But she won't take food from humans. Too wild for that." As if to prove him wrong, Samuel speared a piece of salt pork on his knife and tossed it to the ground. The wolf approached cautiously, took the meat, and carried it back to the shadows. "Seems like she's had a day of breaking her own rules," Samuel said. "Figured she'd earned some easy calories." He looked at Catherine. "That animal saved your life. She kept you alive when everything else in this desert wanted you dead. That deserves respect." They ate in comfortable silence, and Catherine found herself studying Samuel. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, but there was gentleness in the way he moved. "What were you before tracking?" Catherine asked. "Army scout," Samuel said. 6 years helping the cavalry track Apache war parties. Saw things no man should see. After my enlistment, I swore I'd never wear a uniform again, but the tracking skills stuck. And now you use them for justice. I use them to try to balance the scales. This is my way of making some small corner of the world a little less cruel, by stopping men who prey on the weak, men who leave women tied to posts. The world's got enough monsters. I make sure there are a few less." Catherine understood. "You can't save everyone." "No," Samuel agreed. "But I saved you. Today. That's enough." The wolf emerged from the shadows then, moving into the firelight with surprising boldness. She approached Catherine, sniffed her carefully, then lay down beside her. Catherine reached out hesitantly and placed her hand on the animal's head. The wolf's eyes closed, contentment rumbling from its chest. "I'll be damned," Samuel murmured. "She's adopted you." They made camp there that night. Samuel kept watch while Catherine slept, the wolf curled beside her. And when he finally dozed, it was the wolf who kept watch over them both. Morning came gentle. Samuel was already up, his horse saddled, his expression troubled. "I need to make a choice," he said. "The bandits' trail is getting colder. If I don't move soon, I'll lose them. But you're not strong enough to travel yet." Then go, Catherine said. I'll be fine. You'll die. You're in no condition to travel alone. Samuel was quiet, then sighed. I take you with me. You ride my horse, I walk. We move slow. It'll add days to the pursuit, might cost me the trail entirely. But leaving you here isn't an option I can live with. The wolf had been listening. Now she stood and moved to the edge of town, looking back at them expectantly. I think she wants us to follow, Catherine observed. Samuel nodded. Wolves know territory. If she's got a destination in mind, might be worth seeing where she leads. They followed the wolf for 3 hours into foothills, where water ran underground. Then the wolf stopped at the edge of a small canyon, and Samuel saw what she'd been leading them toward. Water. A natural spring feeding into a pool, surrounded by grass and cottonwood trees. An oasis, hidden and perfect. She brought us to water, Catherine breathed. She knew exactly where to go. They made camp by the spring. Over 3 days, Catherine's strength returned. Samuel hunted, supplementing their supplies. Catherine rested and regained weight, and the wolf remained with them, always keeping watch. On the 4th morning, Catherine stood, demonstrating her recovered balance. I'm ready. We can leave today. You sure? I'm sure. And I owe someone a debt. 5 someones. The men who did this need to answer. Samuel studied her, seeing something new in her eyes. The ordeal had changed her, hardened something. This isn't your fight. They made it my fight when they left me to die. Catherine's voice was steel. I want to see them face justice. Samuel nodded slowly. Then we ride together. But understand, these men are dangerous. This could end in blood. Good, Catherine said, and meant it. 3 days of hard riding brought them to Copper Wells, a mining settlement at the base of a played-out mountain. Samuel made inquiries, and by evening learned that 5 men matching the bandits' description had passed through, headed toward an abandoned mine. They're there, Samuel told Catherine. Holed up like rats. Tomorrow we'll show them different. What do I do? Samuel handed her a rifle. You wait at the mine's entrance and make sure none of them get past me. You don't have to shoot to kill. Just shoot to stop. Can you do that? Catherine took the rifle, felt its weight. Yes. The wolf had been watching. Now she stood and moved closer, her amber eyes fixed on both of them. She knows we're hunting, Samuel said. Question is whether she'll help or just watch. They moved out before dawn. The climb was brutal, but they reached the ridge overlooking the mine as the sun rose. Below, smoke rose from a makeshift camp. 5 horses were tethered near the mine entrance. Samuel and Catherine split up as planned. The wolf followed Catherine, staying close, her body language suggesting heightened alert. Samuel moved like a ghost. He got within 50 yards before one of the bandits saw him. The man's shout brought the others out, guns drawn. Samuel's first shot took the leader, the man with ice-chip eyes. He went down with a hole in his chest. The second shot missed as the remaining 4 scattered. Catherine opened fire from her position. Her first shot went high, but the second struck one of the bandits in the leg, dropping him. The wolf, seeing violence unleashed, launched herself down the slope with terrifying speed, her teeth finding the throat of a bandit who'd tried to flank Samuel. The remaining 2 broke and ran for their horses. Samuel let them go 20 yards before his rifle spoke twice more. Both men fell. The silence that followed was profound. The wounded bandit was whimpering, clutching his leg. Samuel approached him. "You remember a woman you left tied to a post in Salvation Creek?" Samuel asked quietly. The bandit's eyes went wide when he saw Catherine. "You're supposed to be dead." "Supposed to be," Catherine agreed. "But I'm not. Thanks to a wolf that had more humanity than you ever will." Samuel bound the man's wound, then tied him securely. "You're going back to Prescott to face trial for murder and robbery." They camped that night near the mine. Catherine sat by the fire, the wolf's head resting on her lap, feeling the weight of everything settle into her bones. "You did good," Samuel said. "Most people freeze when violence comes. You didn't." "I was terrified," Catherine admitted. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it." Samuel poked the fire. "What will you do now? Still planning to teach in Tucson?" Catherine was quiet, her hand moving through the wolf's fur. "I think I've found a different calling. You said you track for justice. Could you use a partner?" Samuel's eyebrows rose. "A partner? Someone to watch your back. Someone who understands what it means to face the worst and choose to fight back." Catherine's eyes met his, and someone with a wolf who's decided we're all packed now. Samuel studied her, then smiled. "I think that might be the smartest offer anyone's made me in years. But you should know, this work is dangerous, lonely, thankless." "I've already been to the darkest place," Catherine said. "I was tied to a post, dying. Everything after this is a gift. Might as well use it for something worthwhile." They shook hands over the fire, sealing a partnership that would become legendary. The tracker and the schoolteacher, hunting those who preyed on the weak, and beside them, always, the wolf who'd chosen to save instead of destroy. Years later, when people told stories about Samuel Cross and Catherine Price, they'd always mention the wolf, how she'd saved Catherine when she was left to die, how she'd fought beside them in a dozen gunfights, how she'd lived to be older than any wild wolf should. But the truth was simpler. The wolf had seen someone who needed saving and chosen to save them. In doing so, she'd saved 3 souls that day: Catherine from death, Samuel from loneliness, and herself from isolation. Because that's what saved anything in the brutal Wild West. Not strength, or speed, or the fastest draw, but the willingness to look at something broken and decide it was worth mending. The courage to offer protection when offering meant vulnerability. The choice to build pack instead of walking alone. Catherine Price had been left to die in Salvation Creek, but she'd been found instead. Found by a wolf who broke all the rules. Found by a tracker who chose mercy over vengeance. Found by a purpose she'd never known she needed. And together, they'd built something that lasted longer than any ghost town. They'd built family, pack, home. In the most unlikely place, they'd found redemption. And it had started with a wolf who'd looked at a dying woman and decided she was worth saving.